Hello there, welcome to saberduelgaming, where we always take the high ground. In 1987, Disney introduced audiences to DuckTales, following Louie, Huey and Dewey's adventures along with Scrooge McDuck. The show ran for 3 seasons until 1990, and was even joined by a movie, straight to video of course. But for many people, as fantastic as this cartoon was, the one thing it's more synonymous with is the 1989 video game released on the Nintendo Entertainment System and Game Boy. But is this classic as good as we remember it? Well, let's find out as we do DuckTales, a retro review. Now from the beginning, it does let you pick between 3 difficulty levels. However, don't expect any of these to be very easy. These late 80s platform games were known for being brutal. But the one piece of leeway this game does show you is it allows you to pick the order in which you want to complete the levels, so it at least gives you that bit of mercy. So what kind of game is it? Well, this is a platform game, but don't be expecting to rush through levels like you would with games such as Sonic the Hedgehog and Super Mario Bros. Instead, each of the 5 levels is quite a large map with ups and downs, going underground, climbing up high, teleporting through mirrors. Basically more of an exploration game and adventure game than just a clear platform game. Now the game only has 5 levels, and if you picture something like Super Mario, that probably sounds painfully short, but the reality is that's not how it plays out. Each one of these 5 levels will take a great deal of exploring to retrieve a particular treasure that you need to further on the mission. Scrooge McDuck is going to bump into various other members of the DuckTales roster to give him hints and clues, or certain ones that he has to rescue, but realistically it's going to be Scrooge that you're playing at. The 5 levels you'll play on are pretty varied, so whilst there's not many of them, they do at least look different. You've got the Himalayas, the Amazon, you've got Transylvania, the Moon and African mines. Each of these levels present with enough of a challenge, and at the end you'll inevitably have the boss fight, which can vary between challenging and frustrating as hell. But I cannot comment on this game without bringing up a couple of points. So first of all, there is the music. The music in this game is really good, but especially the classic DuckTales music, and that 8-bit version of it is so iconic. It's just brilliant. The slightly more negative thing is the controls for Scrooge McDuck. In this game, his one real attack is the pogo stick bounce, which you also use to be able to reach higher levels. And whilst this is a unique and interesting way of attacking, it can become a little bit frustrating, and it's a little bit tricky to do, especially if you now play it on new ports of the game. On certain consoles and certain versions, it's almost impossible, which makes the game even more difficult than it needs to be. So there's pros and cons to the game. It is really a great deal of fun, and when you complete it, it actually has quite an interesting twist. There's actually multiple different endings depending on how well you play. So how was it received? Well, this one is really bizarre. See, I remember this game being something that was a great deal of fun. I remember playing it, although I did mostly play it on the Game Boy instead of the NES. So I looked back through the different publications, and it seemed like every single magazine reviewed this game. It's unsurprising considering how popular the animated series was. What did surprise me was just how varied the results were. This game got everything from 69%, which is not really that good, all the way up to 90%, which is what you'd expect for a top-ranked Mario game. Usually we only see wide ranges in scores like this in games that are very much for a niche audience, such as sport games that don't really appeal to people who don't play that sport or follow it. Platform games are something that everyone enjoys, and Disney? It's not exactly a niche audience now, is it? Hell, this cartoon certainly wasn't. Everyone loved it. But the contrast didn't stop there. Electronic Gaming Monthly made a comment that whilst you would enjoy the game, you'd have it completed in no time. Meanwhile, Mean Machine Games said that you'd find it very tough and challenging. It's riddled with contradictions. So this leaves me instead having to look at how it stands up now. Modern scrutiny may be the only way we can resolve this dilemma. So how did this game hold up now? Well, first of all, let me be clear, I loved this game. I played it non-stop on the Nintendo Game Boy, and did play it a little bit on the NES as well. I recently re-downloaded it onto the PlayStation 4 to be able to replay it. So I'm gonna say the controls were a nightmare, but I'm not gonna hold those against it too much, as often that's an issue with porting. That said, I do remember the controls being fiddly and a little bit annoying back then as well, so it can't be fully excused. The levels themselves are fine and relatively fun to play, but often you get hit by villains not simply because you made a mistake, but through sheer bad luck. It's kind of a fluke. The graphics still look fine today, considering it's an 8-bit game. Obviously you'd expect a lot better now, and they have done a remastered version, but for what it is, these still stand up okay. They're a lot more colourful than certainly some of the Mario games are. And the music is still 8-bit perfection. It's wonderful. There's also a great deal of charm in just seeing these characters. Just watching Scrooge McDuck bounce around genuinely filled me with joy. It also really helps that you're allowed to pick which level you want to play. Aside from one of them requiring the key from Transylvania to let you progress, you can start and play whichever one you want. This helps give it a pick up and play factor that these retro games often need, so big plus. Overall, DuckTales is still a lot of fun and it has so much charm, but it's by no means as good as we remember. A 6.5 out of 10 feels fair. It probably won't do, but if you go back and play it, I think you'll agree.